get vengeance.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars and welcome to another classic film review. Today I'm taking a look at the 1979 science fiction action film Mad Max. The film is of course directed by George Miller and it stars Mel Gibson. Right, okay, this film focuses on Mel Gibson's character Max, who is a road cop, I suppose. It's set in the future. Society is kind of broken down quite a lot. It's not yet the apocalyptic future that we see in future Mad Max films. It is prior to that, in a sense of, society is broken down, criminals are kind of taking over, but there is still law and order, and Max is one of these cops that patrols the roads and stops some of these gangs from kind of taking over the highways. He's got a wife and a young son. His best friend is called Jim Goose, and they essentially take down the Knight Rider, who is he thinks he's like a famous criminal, but he gets taken down by Max. And the leader of a gang called Toe Cutter doesn't take too kindly to this, so he targets these road cops, including Goose and others, and then makes a beeline for Max and his family. Right, what are my thoughts on Mad Max? Well, I thought I would take a look at and revisit the Mad Max films. Classic films, really. Certainly, well, all of them. You can even look at Fury Road now. I mean, that is going to be a classic. I've always really liked the Mad Max films, but out of the three Mel Gibson Mad Max films, the first one for me feels like an oddity because of the others being set like in an apocalyptic future. They feel strange, and there is definitely aspects of this film that haven't dated well. Obviously, for its time, it was very low budget. Mel Gibson wasn't a star, and there's a lot when you watch this film. There are huge aspects of it that do definitely feel like they haven't dated well. But at the very core of this film is a very brutal and gritty, like, road film, really. It creates this world where you just kind of like, God, I would hate to live in that world, where there's just the society's on the fringe, and the law basically is just hanging on by its fingertips. These gangs are taking over, and it doesn't seem like you can go anywhere without, bumping into a gang member or somebody that's going to kill you or rape you or steal everything from you, or, it just feels like a horrific place to spend your time in this film. And for the time that it came out, I mean, you can see the early gestation of the incredible vehicle stunts that we get in the future films. There's some really standout moments in this. I mean, I think it's got one of the most iconic introductions to a character ever in Max, because the film starts off, like I say, with this Knight Rider causing chaos on the highway, and all these police are chasing him in their interceptors, and he's outwitting all of them, really, including Goose. And then the last one left is Max, and he's, ice in his veins, and he basically takes out the Knight Rider, and it's just such a cool introduction to his character. And then he kind of takes a back seat, the Max character, because it kind of focuses then on Goose, the film, interestingly, and Max then becomes more prominent when the Goose character is taken out, and then Max kind of loses it, and he has to go away. He goes away on a vacation with his family, and then we see what happens, obviously, to Max's family. Devastating, that absolutely, obviously, crushes him, and then he goes on this you know, to seek revenge against this gang. And I remember watching it when I was younger, this, and I didn't like Mad Max, the first Mad Max, when I was younger. I thought it was fairly dull, I suppose. I can appreciate it a lot more now, as a at the age I'm at. That whole section where he goes after the gang in his, you know, upgraded Interceptor is just absolutely fabulous. You know, and you can see where his limp comes from, and why, certainly when I was younger, why I thought this gang was just gonna, you know, cave in and let him do what he wants to do to them. You know, that's because that's kind of what I wanted to see when I was a kid, when I was younger. I wanted him to kind of almost mow him down like a Terminator, and that's not reality. And this film displays that. You know, I think that's something the Mad Max films have always been good at. You know, he's such a compelling character, Max, but he's no superhero, and he's vulnerable. And he gets hurt and injured, and you see it in all the Max films, including this one. But it is very, very satisfying to see the transition of his character from, you know, this road cop and a family man, wanting to get out at one point, kind of wanting to quit, and, you know, because he doesn't feel like he's making a difference, and then convinced by his superiors to just go and take a holiday with your family, sort of thing, and come back, see how you're feeling afterwards. And that was arguably the worst thing he could have done for him. He ended up losing his family. A very, very memorable villain in Toe Cutter, Hugh, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, Hugh Case Byrne, who returned obviously in Fury Road as Immortan Joe, I believe it was, which I thought was a really, really fantastic thing to do, because he's now played two very, very iconic villains in the Mad Max films, this one and Fury Road. Very, very memorable, I think, as Immortan Joe, as Toe Cutter in this film, and he just stands out really as this completely off kilter lunatic of a character in charge of these criminals, and so some of his facial expressions and things like that, I mean, they actually make you laugh. It's almost comedic, his performance at time, when the woman gets a shotgun out and that look on his face, I mean, it makes you giggle every time. It's almost pantomime the way he portrays himself as a villain here. So I think the original Mad Max, it's an oddity in regards to how it stands out with the other two movies, the Mel Gibson movies, but it's a very, very important film to kind of introduce you to this character Max, and makes you want to kind of understand where he's at in the other films as well. And there are some very, very impressive, fun, like chase sequences in this film, and vehicle combat sequences and all that kind of stuff, but it's definitely not on the same level as the other movies, because they do definitely feel much different to this. So yeah, I think this is a classic, a film I really respect far more than I used to when I was a kid. It's a really, really cool film. And I will obviously be revisiting the next films as well, second and the third one. So thanks for joining me, guys. I'll be back with more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.